Today we are talking about the Holosun HS507cx2 with the ACSS VULCAN reticle from Primary Arms and Holosun, and why I think it is quite possibly better than the Trijicon RMR. Let's talk about it. Before we do, I want to say thank you to the sponsor of this channel, shallnotcomply.com. They handle all of my merch. We got some new designs that just hit the store. I'm super happy with how they came out. Fast shipping. They get the products to you within a few days, typically, which has been something I very much appreciate. Thank you, Johnny and Emily, for handling it. If you use the link in the description, anything that you buy after using that link, I will get a percentage of the profit, at which point that will help support the channel. Thank you, everyone. So the Holosun HS507cx2, this is a pistol-mounted red dot that uses an RMR footprint. What's great about that is many people who have a Glock with an MOS system or people that have slides typically have them milled for the Trijicon RMR. The fact that it shares that pattern increases the availability of slides and ability to mount it to a typical firearm that's got various mounting plates. The HS507C is pretty interesting. It's got a long battery life measured in 50,000 hours, I believe it is, which basically for me means I can replace all of my batteries every year on my birthday or on January 1st, at which point I swap out all the batteries in my guns, all of my optics, get fresh batteries, and then I don't need to worry about it. If I replace them every year, if the world goes to shit and batteries become not a thing, I've got like 3 years of battery life left in all my guns. That's pretty sweet. But you don't need to swap it out very often. The buttons on the side are very easy to use. They're pretty small. The one thing that I think the Trijicon has over this is the fact that the Holosun buttons are small. And as a right-handed shooter, when I carry this gun appendix, or even if you were carrying it on the hip, if you want to make adjustments to the buttons, to the brightness of this, subtly underneath your cover garment, it's a little bit harder to do so because you can't quite just feel big buttons on the side like the Trijicon RMR has. This has a variety of brightness settings. Some of them are night vision compatible, which is great. It's plenty daylight bright. In the brightest conditions that I've had it out in, I can still see that red dot really easy. And now I say red dot because that's the colloquial term for battery-powered laser emitter red dot sights, but the reticle is really what sets this thing apart. Now, the way this reticle works is it's a chevron, which is just basically a triangle without the bottom line, and then a big 100 MOA circle. And now you might be thinking, 100 MOA circle, what's that got to do with anything? And we'll talk about that in a second, because when you actually present it, it disappears and you can no longer see it. But let's talk about the chevron. It's a triangle, and at the top point of the triangle, you sight that in for 25 yards. So at 25 yards, you get your point of aim, your point of impact, and you put the tip of that triangle on the dot that you want to hit. Sight it in. Awesome. Then at the bottom, the inside point of that little triangle, that is where you will hit at 50 yards with 9mm. They have various other calibers that, on their reticle chart that they say what it will hit at. But nowadays, most people are shooting 9mm. So the most relevant one for most people is to know that with a 9mm, you sight it in at 25 yards. And then at 50 yards, you use the inside bottom portion of that little tip. Cool. What about the legs? Why is it a chevron? Why is it not just a dot? Well, the legs you actually use for 100 yards, which some people have been able to effectively get easy hits at 100 yards. I'm not the best pistol shot, so it's not quite so easy for me, but it's not difficult at all to take a shot at 100 yards with a red dot that has the right holdovers. The big thing that red dots on a pistol increase your ability to do over iron sights is shoot at distance. Speed is basically the same. If you train a lot with a handgun, you will get fast with it. You're not going to see massive differences between the red dot and the iron sights, but shooting at distance is huge. When you are using a red dot, it is so much easier because you're not obstructing the sights of what you want to hit with your sights. You just put the little chevron on what you want to hit and you pull the trigger. When you're using iron sights and you have to hold over, you're blocking what it is that you actually want to hit. So if you're trying to shoot a fairly small target at 50 or 100 yards with iron sights on a pistol, it becomes much more difficult to find your holdovers versus using a dot that you can still see your target with. So for me, that's huge. So the way this reticle works is it's got the chevron and then a 100 MOA ring. When you present the gun out, you actually cannot see the 100 MOA ring. I can see the ring when I bring it about this far away from my face, but the second that I press out, I can no longer see that circle in my field of view, which is great. And you're probably going to be asking yourself, why is that great? Because typically when I train and I practice, I'm standing flat-footed, it's easy, my holster's in a perfect position, I come up and my dot's right on target, and I don't need to go fishing around for that dot. Now, some people are going to say, okay, well, that just seems like you need to do more training. Yes, you can always do more training, but you're never going to be in a perfect position all the time, and sometimes you might need to come up and then make that slight adjustment to get on target. Where this excels is because that 100 MOA ring is not visible when you're perfectly lined up. If, let's say, you are off to one side, you will see a part of the ring on the rim showing you that you need to bring it on over. And for me, that's huge because I find this especially helpful when I'm shooting. I'm boom, 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 boom. I go to do a reload and I find myself a lot of the times I'm not quite perfectly on it when I come back up from my reload. Most of the time I'm there, but sometimes I'm just a little bit off, and having that little circle, half circle showing, it just immediately I can snap back to where I need to be. And that's huge. Being able to get on target quicker is so easy with this thing. Pistol red dots are great. I had a Trijicon RMR for a while. I loved it, but eventually I just sold it. It just wasn't perfect for my needs. I have Specialized, and many other people also find that they have Specialized. When I shoot with a red dot, typically my Aimpoint Pro has a very specific look to it. It looks like someone smashed a fly or smashed a bug on the wall and then kind of like smeared it down on their windshield. My Aimpoint H2 looks much better. It looks kind of like a circle with a little wart on the top of it, and that's fine. Easy to use. I understand it. For some reason, this red dot doesn't have those issues for me nearly as bad. Sometimes there is a little bit of ghosting, but it's nothing like these splattered squirrels or splattered bugs that look like my other red dots. And for me, that's why I am super stoked about this. Right now, these are back ordered through Primary Arms. They're super high demand. I think they run about $300, which is significantly cheaper than you can get a Trijicon RMR. I think back in the good old days, you can get a Trijicon RMR Type 2 RM06, which is equally confusing of a name, for about $450 pretty consistently. So at $300 versus the realistically you're going to be paying $550 for an RMR nowadays, I think that's a steal. Excellent durability. If you're interested in durability testing of red dot, specifically pistol optics, check out Sage Dynamics. The RMR is the king, no doubt, when it comes to durability, but the Holosuns are right up there. They aren't fragile. People get upset about Chinese optics. I totally get it. I understand your point of view on that, but I'm not going to be putting $700 optics on all of my guns, and I'm not going to be putting $500 pistol sights on all of my guns, especially when this one does it better. This optic does things that allow me to be way more effective than the RMR allows me to do. And so for me, that's why I love the Holosun HS507cx2 with the ACSS VULCAN Reticle. Complicated name, excellent product. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.